Awesome. Well, good morning. Welcome to RSA 2024. Thanks for having us today. We're going to run this a little differently. Our setup was a little off, but we're gonna run this as a fireside. And what I'd like to do after we're done is we'll have some time for some questions and answers as well. So just to remind everyone, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask at the end, we'll leave about 10 or so minutes for that. And there's a mic right there. Please come up and feel free to take advantage of that as we go. I'd like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Vishal Amin. I'm the founder of the Spades Institute. I'm also the general manager and leader of Microsoft's security business for U.S. Federal. 21 years in the Marine Corps, former fighter pilot. Did a whole bunch of other things that my son doesn't know about. He thinks my job's boring now. But more importantly, I'd like to introduce our guest today, Lauren Knausenberger. She is the former CIO of the United States Air Force and the current Chief Innovation Officer of SAIC, also a good friend, fellow member of a few advisory committees and nonprofit boards that we do work in around national security. Lauren, thank you for being here.
All right, thanks, and good morning, everybody. Glad to see you all here this morning.
Let's
welcome to our living room here this morning.
Oh yeah, this is great. All right, so a little bit about what we want to talk about today. So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen in industry, Lauren, is the way we invest in our cybersecurity programs, how we invest in our people, how we build our programs. I think a lot of folks in this room have maybe their own organizations or they're security experts within their organizations. Maybe they're defending against nation-state actors or they're SOC analysts. You know, there's a big difference of how we do well, I don't know. Maybe there's a big difference of how we do things on the national security side than how you do things at SAIC. So I want to kind of go through a little bit about that. But I want to start with a softball. You know, what was it like being the CIO of one of the most prominent and largest enterprise organizations in the world?
So it was fun and it was kind of wild. I'll share, but I want to ask just real quick in the audience. I want to get an idea of who's with us today. How many folks are with small cybersecurity firms? Large cybersecurity firms? Government? Okay, we got a heavy government room. Academia or nonprofit? Okay. Anything else that I didn't mention?
Organizations with a cyber practice, but that's not their core business.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So cyber leaders from other organizations. Thank you so much. And is that you?
Publicly traded company.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So welcome. I'll back up for a minute. So I joined the Air Force by accident in about 2017. I was the first Chief Transformation Officer for the Air Force and also the first Chief Transformation Officer in the Department of Defense. So came in kind of sideways to a senior role. And one of the first things that I got to work on was changing the way that we did cyber accreditation, which some of you can probably hate me that I didn't, fix the whole thing during that time. Or you can celebrate the things that did get fixed, like continuous ATO for software deployment and fast track some of those authorities we were able to push through. After a couple years working in software, trying to refine some of those processes and also starting organizations like AFWorks and bringing in more companies into the defense industrial base, I was asked to stay on as the Chief Information Officer. And do we have any CIOs or CISOs in the room? Okay. Oh, we have one. So it's a tough job. So in the transformation business and in the innovation business, you get to often focus on a particular problem or upstack. If you're a CIO or a CISO, you're focused on solving problems for an enterprise. You're probably not funded as well as you should to do everything that you should across that enterprise, to take care of cybersecurity, to take care of user experience, to take care of business and mission needs. So I will share that it was definitely the most rewarding job I've ever had. The mission impact, the daily threats that we had from state actors who were very, very well funded, who wanted to do things like steal our missiles. Or to thwart missions around the world. That was a big deal. That was more of kind of a, that was the thing
Right.
that kind of keeps you up at night. But then on the other hand, enabling warfighters around the world, helping to bring capabilities so that it didn't have to be so hard to solve problems that should be easy, in the time that we live in. So it was fantastic. It was a very large enterprise. So by the time I was CIO, it was Department of the Air Force, so Air Force and Space Force. So you have 750,000 users around the world.
Right.
And you have adversaries who, if they can get into your networks, does not just cause harm to you, it causes harm to the entire country.
That's pretty amazing. That's a lot to keep you up at night. I have some things up on the slide. We don't have to go through it, but you're really thinking about critical infrastructure. You're thinking about threat intelligence. You're thinking about incident responding. There's a lot of that going on day to day. One of the things that you do now, though, at SAIC is it's not just national security, even though it has a lot to do with critical infrastructure, it has a lot to do with a lot of the things that you mentioned, but there's revenue associated with it now, right? When you are building these security programs in the Air Force, you've got an allocated budget. I'm sure, like many folks here, you've got certain guidelines that you have to adhere to. Many organizations here have a board that they have to go to actually bring something on from. They can go out and look at innovative products and maybe test them and bring them in, and they maybe have budget to do that. I was speaking to the Futures Chief Innovation Officer for JP Morgan and Chase recently, and he was speaking about the futures budgets that they had and the innovations that they made. That's a lot different of a conversation in the national security space. Talk to me a little bit about how you invested, and what was that decision criteria on how you invested in that futures technology, especially around cyber from a national security side. And I think I would love to hear kind of what you do now at SAIC and how that's relevant there.
Yeah, so I will share that, maybe I'll validate some of the government folks in the audience that are struggling with this daily. I find it easier with revenue. I find it easier without having a budget. If you have a budget, that's the budget. And there were times that, literally would have a conversation, okay, if this is really the budget, then do we cut the email licenses? Do we cut the routers and switches?
Wait, so you're saying
do
as
we
a
cut
national security CIO, you literally,
there is
you
not
thought
enough
about
money to cover what the enterprise needs
So
as
email.
a baseline, period. Well, it's kind of, in the DoD, there's always the well, what are we going to cut? And the first thing the military guys will be like, you can have the runway, because nobody's going to cut the runway. But it's equally preposterous.
Not the Air Force.
Yeah, the Air Force
right?
is not going to cut the runway. It's like, well, we need the runway. It's like, what are we going to do? Cut the jets? It's like, we'll just cut gas. It'll be fine. But likewise in IT, it's preposterous to be like, oh, we just won't have email anymore. And well, actually, you could replace it with other, collaboration tools. Most people don't check email anymore anyway, right? Below a certain age. But you have to have some sort of enterprise collaboration capability. You have to have routers and switches. You do have to have connectivity.
Right.
You have to pay your cell bill, whatever else. And you have to have cybersecurity tooling and a workforce to go through it. And when you add those things up at the base level, the budget didn't cover it. And so that's where I started referring to the way that we did budget in the Department of Defense as faith-based financing. Because it's like you either went through with your budget and you actually had to cut email and kind of figure it out, or you kind of had faith that the manna would fall from heaven in August and that you would just spend it really, really fast so that you could continue to have, routers and switches and cybersecurity tools, and sometimes get really, really creative. On the industry side,
Wait, can I pause there for a second?
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations in this room that are looking for budget, and I feel like they may even have a similar perspective of faith-based financing, of where the revenue is going to hit for their organization, how much of that budget is going to land. From the national security side, faith-based budgeting, I don't think worked the way it was supposed to this year, did it?
No, it did not. There's a lot of loss of faith in August, and
So doing a lot
Yeah.
more with a lot less. You were operating in the they were operating in the red.
Yeah, and that burned us one year when I was CIO too, and we figured it out, but it's really hard, and we
Okay.
very rarely pass budgets on time. There is very often kind of a guessing game, and it affects everyone. You know, it
So
affects
taking
everyone.
that, and then from that earlier question, moving that into the private sector, right? What you do at SAIC,
Yeah.
and the decisions you made as a CIO that was defending against nation-state actors from Russia, Iran, China, and the decisions you made on cutting email or not cutting email, what the programs you were investing in, has that changed in how you defend against now those same actors in the private sector? Do they look at that threat the same? Do they make those same decisions in the programs that they want to invest or divest in?
So, in the private sector, it's a different type of stakes. I mean, you still have state actors, you still have different types of threats that are trying to take your information for various purposes or to embarrass you and shut down your site. I think actually the whole DoD recently had a cloud outage. You know, you couldn't get to the websites for a period of time. I would call that kind of an embarrassment attack. Like you can't use some things. Sometimes those are a cover for more serious attacks.
Right.
That is more like a corporate attack. Like, hey, your systems are down. You can't get into core systems.
We're talking about
I'd
the
call
enterprise,
it
right.
your enterprise systems. I would call it a bigger deal when an adversary gets in and steals either information about your people within your organization. That has also happened, you know, on the DoD side. Historically, I think was it?
OPM breach.
It was the OPM breach.
Right.
That was kind of the biggest example of that. That affected a lot of people, anybody with a security clearance, you know, at the time as well. But yeah, so it's a little bit lower stakes in that affects your company. Now, some of the defense industrial base does have really important plans in their systems. That's a huge issue.
Right.
So if you are a maker of airplanes or ammunition, that is something that has to be protected at a different level. That is usually protected in partnership with the government, and it's usually protected more locally. That's not something that's going to be hanging out on a defense industrial bases like network next to the emails, or
Right.
it really shouldn't be. It's not where I am. Maybe that's, you know,
Yeah.
not a great practice. But I personally find it immensely easier, first during my time as Chief Transformation Officer in the Air Force, and now as my time as the Chief Innovation Officer at SAIC, where in both of those roles, if I saw something that was important to invest in, I could make a case that it was important to invest in that, and someone is going to give me money. On the Air Force side,
Right.
you know, hey, we are going to launch a new cyber accreditation process. We're going to launch a digital university where anybody can take courses and we can see exactly who's a great coder. And then you can help them to do something that is better in line with their talent, even if we hired them as, you know, to be a cook.
Right.
You know, the Under Siege principle, Steven Seagal.
Love
Is
that movie.
outdated at this point? The best fighter's the cook.
Right.
You know, that was kind of the premise there. But when you have an idea like that, people are like, oh, here, have some money. I want to cover my warfighter. I want my program to go better. On the corporate side, if I can generate X revenue, of course I'm going to invest X OpEx or CapEx. And as long as there is a return, then you can invest a lot of money.
Right.
Now, our CIO, just like any DoD CIO, is also constrained, but he has enough. We don't play the manna from heaven game. It's like your budget is your budget. It is sufficient or it's not. You work it out in the budget process and you move on. So I have been I found it refreshing to find a complete lack of foolishness in the corporate budgeting process. You know what your budget is. It is sufficient. There is an adult conversation around resources. It is real. There's not a lot of fat in the overhead, and you're focused then on accomplishing the mission for the customers.
So that's a great point to kind of land on. When I look at our role in the private sector and how we looked at investing in our technologies with the budget we had in, you know, for me in the Department of Defense and now Microsoft or Google or Amazon, fitting that budget into what you need and investing in technologies in what you need now has been the priority. You don't have to just scrap something together and scrap email. You could say, hey, we need a multi-cloud, on-premises, hybrid solution, right? And you can start investing in that. So you're able to look forward and invest in solutions that do cloud security posture management and other things for not just a Microsoft or Amazon or Google, but all of us, right?
Yeah, and actually that part is also awesome because we have a lovely CIO, and I'm actually thrilled I don't need to be the CIO for SAIC. And our CIO has to focus on those basic needs. And I get to focus on what is the next thing that we are going to do that's going to really solve a gnarly problem for our customers. So I get to focus on things like how do I make the best, well, I think we are, I think we do, I feel pretty good about our digital engineering platform, actually. I'd say we're the market leader there. But how do I continue to make this awesome? How do I continue to make this digital thread solve really, really important problems? On the data and AI side, how do I continue to advance this platform and bring in new capabilities? How do I continue to make our cloud solutions, how do I refine our FinOps capability? How do I make it even more secure? How do I help us to automate and get ATOs even faster?
Right.
And those are a lot of the things that our customers really want. And then how do I integrate that data set that's older than me into the counter UAS solution or into the vehicle that we're building kind of on the side?
What's your take on, so you're talking about migrating data sets that are older than you.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a few peers this weekend, and we were talking about the need to actually even move to the cloud. And he made a great point to me. He said, hey, Vishal, listen, my grandmother bought her refrigerator in the 1940s and 50s. And I think I see...
They made them pretty good back then.
Yeah, I think I see Gentry, and I think I was talking to Gentry about this the other day. And that refrigerator is still in our family's home, working, colder than all the other refrigerators, hasn't broken. The only thing we had to change was like the power inverter or whatever it was, but it hasn't stopped working. It actually even has a manual lock. I don't need to change it. But I've got this Viking refrigerator over here, and I'm calling the handyman every 2 years to fix it, and I'm replacing my stove every 2 years. If it's not broken, then why fix it? I look at majority of our organizations in the US government, and even some of our largest financial institutions, whether it's Fiserv or others, and a majority of their infrastructure is exactly that. It's still on racks. So why move it? Why innovate? And they kind of convince me to say, you know what? Maybe let's not move it. Maybe let's meet our customers where they're at and figure out a way to keep it, since it's not broken.
So there is so much to unpack here. So I think that if it ain't broke, don't fix it works to an extent. And there's a lot across our military that it's kind of amazing what we do with like 1950s tech. I got to fly the U-2 a couple summers ago. That sucker was born in 1953. By the way, my father was born in 1953. Like that plane is still innovating every day. Like I want to be that amazing when I am, 70.
Well, with quantum and generative AI, I think we're going to stay the same age forever.
Well, maybe we'll see. We gotta work fast. We gotta work fast. But some of the tech is fantastic, and you can take that airframe and you can do amazing, amazing new things. Like those things are not taking still photos from a classified altitude somewhere north of 70,000 feet anymore. They're doing much cooler stuff. And there are a lot of other missions that have evolved. But a lot of the ain't broke, don't fix it means that my data is hiding under a desk somewhere in a server that could break at any moment, that probably is kind of MacGyvering some parts all the time, like kind of like the new fridge, not like the old fridge.
Right.
Mainframes are really expensive to maintain, and the future of battle, according to all doctrine that I've read, is that we have to be able to fight together, not just within our own joint force, which is the first challenge. Hey, we got Marine and Air Force right here on stage, so like that's one, that's a start.
That's a good,
that's a good
start.
But
I mean, I stay in tents, you stay in hotels, right? I mean, that's kind of the...
I think you stayed in a better hotel last night. That's inside joke. But and with our allies. And so if you want to do that, that means that you have to actually be able to share data. That's important.
Right.
And cloud architecture at this point, I think, is here to stay. Even if it's edge cloud-based architecture, like, fine. There is a huge mission for disconnected ops. There's a huge need for
Right.
DDIL. Even when you have global ubiquitous connectivity, there are still times that you are not going to be flying with a connection on purpose.
Right.
And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean that it has to be a crappy old server that's going to break. You need the
Right.
resiliency of that cloud-based architecture. You need the consistency of that architecture. I have argued for a long time, I think you agree with me on this, it is inherently more secure. You can update it faster.
I
It is
agree.
more resilient. And so I think
I believe that there are always pros and cons, but what I've slowly started to understand, especially around that theory, is the resilience is what makes it
yes,
strong.
yes.
Right, because I believe in that assumed compromise, assumed breach scenario where things are always going to break, but it's that resilience that's not provided anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I agree. But on the point of meet the
Right.
data where it is, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm sure the entire room has had many a vendor come see you and be like, "Oh, this is a really easy problem. We'll just bring all of your data into a data lake, and we'll standardize the format, and then we can analyze it and we'll tell you anything we can." Oh, thank you. Like, I could have done that myself 10 years ago. That's
Yeah.
so lovely. But I do think that there's a long way to go on data governance. I mean, it's the boring stuff that gets you. So there's data everywhere. People repeat the data set, but
Right.
like with no actual link back. So you have the same data set showing up everywhere without understanding that it was the original source. And then you do have places that you don't want to connect, but sometimes you want to connect. So having the right approach in place
Right.
to kind of update and speak back and forth, sometimes on very, very low bandwidth intentionally, sometimes to ask a major question, query a humongous data set and just send back like a yes or a number or a coordinate.
Right.
So you have to be able to do those things. You have to be able to do it securely. But unfortunately, I think that we haven't invested yet enough in the infrastructure and in just the discipline of understanding what data you have and where it really needs to be, and what data needs to be passed back
Right,
and forth.
compliance, governance.
Yeah.
And the chairman of RSA conference was sharing the other day, and I don't know if he shared it at the opening, I wasn't able to attend, but the number one topic out of the thousands of submissions that came to RSA this year, the number one theme was governance and data. It wasn't AI.
Yeah,
AI was part of it, obviously. I think that's every booth and every vendor you go to is going to sell you AI in a box while you're here on the floor. But it
we're
was
all
really,
going to go buy the AI for
I'm
data
going to go
governance
buy
tool.
Zero Trust and AI in a box after this. But he said governance and data was the number one topic. Even because when you're deploying these LLMs, when you're deploying everything that you're putting out there, when you're putting it in the cloud, you need to have guardrails on them. You need to be able to tag them efficiently and effectively. It has to be easier to do that, regardless of where this sits. And it was an interesting concept. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit of something that was really important that you and I kind of spoke about. The topic of how the DoD fights bad guys and who actually does the work. We'll cover hiring and the gap in a little bit and the people and how the DoD finds people and how the private sector finds people. But one of the things that I've realized over the years now is we hire some amazing individuals in the Department of Defense. And by hire, I mean maybe a recruiter convinced that individual to enlist for 4 years and they ended up in a role behind a computer because
their dad made them
Their
fulfill a
dad-
commitment.
that was me, right?
Yeah. He
But-
should tell you the story. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
so but the premise of that is they learn really well, they do it for 4 years, 5 years, and then they leave. And that's not a sustainable model. Now they are threat hunting, they are searching bad guys, they are defending, but you were saying that there's a heavy reliance on the private sector to defend these nation-state adversaries, even for the Department of Defense
Yeah.
or federal agencies.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. And is there a difference in private sector as well?
Yeah, so first, I guess I'll start, I'll kind of weave
Yeah.
through with the training picture. So I do believe our military trains like the best cyber professionals, like truly. And I
Right.
think it's because you have someone that is committed for a period of time. They're coming in from high school or college. The military knows full well that they may not have had that experience. And
Right.
so the first investment is, let's get you the experience. There's a lot of aptitude testing along the way. You know, where are we going to use you? There are a lot of jobs in the cyber enterprise. Where are we going to use you? And the best, the cream of the crop, offensive cyber, if that's
Right.
what they want to do. If it's what they want to
We
do.
just saw General Maylock earlier today, right? And
Yes.
that's
And she's got the whole
recruiting,
enchilada now.
right?
Yeah, and I think there's a great value proposition there. Even if people leave, there's a great value proposition there. You come
Right.
in, you get trained, you have some of the coolest missions in the world. I believe that, to be a really good offensive cyber person, you also have to really understand defense.
Sure.
Ideally, you also understand IT infrastructure, you can code, all of those things. You kind of have to know all of those things as a capstone to really, really be good.
Even now with generative AI and things like ChatGPT 4 and Microsoft Copilot and other things, do you still think you need to know all of that to be able to?
I think you have to know
defend?
enough to be able to use the tools effectively to make the right decisions about the architecture and the tooling in your enterprise.
So understand how they work.
You also have to have a little bit of either understanding of psychology and adversary TTPs, or you have to at least know to ask the right questions about
Okay.
those things.
That's
You
fair.
have to know how to work in a team. I mean, there are many things.
Right.
I think all of those tools are immensely helpful. You don't have to maybe anymore look at the lines of code and say, something's funny here, and you have to know. You can, instead of just finding
You
the
can
colleague that
utilize the
knows, you
resources
can
you
utilize
have.
the resources that you have, but you have to know kind of where to start. And there is more and more to know because there are more and more, serious adversaries. Now, the good news is, this is on the offensive side, but on the good news is we have so many tools to help us, on the defensive side. But still, people still threat hunt. You still have to understand and have kind of sensors throughout the world, whatever they may be, to
Sure.
understand what's happening outside my fence line. What is happening that could hit me,
Right.
at some point. But as I love hearing from folks like Microsoft and Google and others, like, hey, where do you recruit your folks? Like, oh, we recruit the military guys because you train them so well. And that's for data centers, that's for cybersecurity jobs, et cetera. But we do have really, really talented folks that come out, they go to industry. And we have the best industry in the world. We do, like the best cybersecurity offerings. We have the best AI offerings. And when we can work really well with the private sector, creating those capabilities, and we can bring them in and we can vet them and we can train up our operators and we can take more manual everything
And
off of our operators, we get incredible results.
And you're leaning on the private sector as well, right? These folks
Yes.
are transitioning out.
Yeah,
They're doing
absolutely.
managed services for
Yeah.
the Department of Defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Office 365, I'm sitting here with a Microsoft guy, but legit, Office 365 took a lot of, it took a lot of work off of a lot of things.
I didn't pay you to say that.
Yeah,
I
no, but
promise.
it's true. It's true. COVID,
And
during COVID, by the way.
And by the way, I'll give credit, any platform. It
Yeah.
could be G Suite, it could
It
be
could be.
Office 365, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying is that platform approach, and for the Department of Defense specifically, it was Office 365.
Yeah.
Took that
It
load
takes
off.
a huge burden
Right.
off. Just, okay, I don't need to worry about this as much. It's still a huge threat surface that you have to defend, and you have to do so collaboratively. But it is a huge weight off. But just as an aside, in the DoD during COVID, it was kind of funny. It was like the young airmen were the only ones that were like, hey, we should use collaboration tools. it's a better way to work. And most of the people around the Pentagon were like, collaboration tools, those kids are just whining. We don't need collaboration tools. And then COVID hit, and Office 365 was deployed in like 2 days because we didn't have anything else. We had to get things up. We got Zoom approved, I think, in like a week because
Right.
I think we didn't have like Teams calling yet, all of that. So we had to move really fast. And then all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh, collaboration tools. I can be more effective in my work." Like it was like people had to be forced to do something new to realize how game-changing a capability. And then, of course, automating workflows and using dashboards and not having to do everything statically in PowerPoint. It was game-changing. And on the cybersecurity side, equally game-changing, bringing in the best cybersecurity companies to automate a lot of what used to take hundreds of people
Right.
within a SOC, and working with those companies specifically to take those things off, to merge threat intelligence with
Yeah.
the best of what the IC was getting with industry. Like, that's when you're really cooking with gas.
That's a key point, right? What I've realized from one side to the other is we couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
So utilizing the 78 trillion signals or whatever it is now to plug back into our organizations was really important. And sharing that burden and sharing that heavy load with industry. And I look at SMC organizations, Fortune 500 companies, publicly traded organizations. I see them leveraging these MSSPs, these managed providers, more and more,
Yeah.
and freeing up their staff. I think we had some nonprofit folks in the room. I think the last statistic I saw was one actual IT person for every 200 nonprofit individuals associated with the organization. It was mind-blowing, right? They have to use these managed tools to actually get anything done.
Yeah.
And I think, SAIC is doing a wonderful job of that, investing in that. They're a big part of the federal government. You've got a lot of folks in the room. If they were looking at how to invest in a program at their organization that would equally fight or defend against nation-state actors from the private sector arena, similar to the way you did it in the Department of Defense, because I talk a lot lately about commercial diplomacy, and a lot of your organizations are doing work, all around the world. So you're keeping up with all the different governance and compliance requirements that you have. What would you share with the audience here? What do you invest in? What do you spend your money in? Because you don't want to just give your money to an MSSP or a program and then that disappear in a year. Where do they smartly look at what to invest in to help them better protect against some of the nation's most scariest adversaries? And I'm not talking about my 9-year-old, I'm talking about the nation state actors.
Yeah, when we get the 9-year-olds doing the chaos engineering, that's when we're really going to be moving. Yeah, they can find how to break anything, can't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So there are a lot of parallels, actually. There are a lot of things that are pretty similar. I think the DoD and the private sector both try to do a really good job at surveying the landscape and saying, hey, this is the best technology that I can use for this case. And then, like, can I afford it? And part of that, can I afford it, is, hey, can I shut down a bunch of stuff? Do I have to do a bunch? Are there things that I can stop doing as part of my value proposition? So that's kind of the same on both sides. So we both work for Fortune 500s, which, when it comes to kind of IT risk, we actually are pretty conservative, somewhat like the DoD, in that we're probably not going to choose a startup as our enterprise collaboration and cybersecurity and whatever provider. We'll probably do experiments. We'll probably look for commercial traction. If we are an early adopter for an enterprise offering, then it's probably because we're investing a lot of our own capital in that company's roadmap, and we're making it more of a partnership. But when it comes to bringing awesome capabilities, one of the things that, and I guess this is a little bit like the government, but I think we do it a little bit better in the private sector, is the government wants to bring all of those capabilities together, the best of industry. The government loves to adapt startup and really wonderful emerging tech when it can. But there are some barriers. And actually, one thing that I love about being where I am, and just I'll back up a second. So my job includes corporate strategy, technology roadmap, capability development, and ventures. So that is my portfolio. And one thing that is fantastic about that portfolio is that we do not build when we can partner or when we can buy something. Largely, the government feels the same way about that, but we can bring in the best companies. We can vet them, and whereas in my government hat or many government hats, you have to wonder, okay, is this startup going to be there tomorrow? Can they scale? Has there been any cybersecurity rigor here? Has there been any commercial traction? Is this an enduring technology that is going to be here, that's going to gain more adoption? Or is this going to become my tech debt in 2 years? Those are all things that you have to think through, especially in an enterprise that size. And by the way, even though I'm in a Fortune 500, it is still the size of just the cyber force of the US Air Force. Like, it is tiny in comparison to the enterprise. So there is a difference there still.
Right.
But when I'm looking at investing in startups, it is actually like very rewarding that we have the capabilities in-house in our company to say, hey, that startup, I'm going to make sure they're there tomorrow. I'm going to make an actual venture investment in that startup. I'm going to help them get through the cybersecurity rigor because I believe that it will be an enduring capability. I'm going to market with them. This is the best FinOps capability I've ever seen. I'm going to bring it into my cloud solution. And we actually did make an investment in a company called Morpheus that is a startup, has a fantastic FinOps solution. And when Treasury was buying cloud, they were so impressed with this company that it became actually a huge part of our value proposition when we won T-Cloud. It was a startup, but they were backed by a large company that put them through the cybersecurity rigor and ensured that they could scale. And so going back to my old hat as CIO, I would have loved to know that there were more companies that were looking at it that way. And so I'm excited that I get to look at it that way now, because that de-risks those emerging technologies as they come into those big solutions. And it doesn't put it on the startup that has to stay intensely focused for its survival. A startup has to stay focused on just that thing. They can't worry about the humongous DoD problem that is way over there and maybe across the country. That's where the integrators help. And on the DoD side, we wanted to bring the best companies together. We wanted them to work together. It was very hard to be the integrator in government. Like, we just were not a good integrator in government. We had to partner with someone that could bring those pieces together and that also we could hold accountable in one place. Like, I want to be held accountable that I found the best companies and that we integrated a solution end to end that solved a really gnarly problem. And it's hard, but it is incredibly rewarding. And that is where we tend to invest
Right.
in startups. And then our R&D spend, it's on what is, where can I get the kind of the biggest mission impact? And actually, one thing that I love about the company that I am with is that all the way up to the CEO, our philosophy is not like, hey, let's sell some stuff and let's, accomplish
Right.
missions. It's, if you are focused on the mission and if you are focused on solving the problem and if you are adding value, the revenue will come. And so we focus very much on the mission first, and that actually, that is something that I believe in and that
Right.
I've always believed in, and so that is something that kind of resonates with me.
I think you and I are both very passionate about the mission. Let me ask you another question, but we've got about 10 minutes left. So if you have a question, please, find the mic over there and feel free to go over there, and we'll make sure we answer it today. When I look at investing in the mission, I look at security also as a cost center. Right, so it's really hard to invest for a private organization in the mission if, you're just mitigating that risk, right, with your security investments.
Yeah.
So you're kind of balancing that. Maybe a quick tidbit on that, and let's go to some questions.
Yeah, so that is really hard in the DoD, even eyes wide open. Even eyes wide open, you know that that there's a threat. I mean, we had a major communication system get shut down.
Listen,
like a year
bad
or
things
two.
happen in all
Yeah,
organizations.
yeah. And it took that for people to be like, oh, I guess we better update all of our crypto.
Yeah.
Because some of these problems are really expensive to
Right.
solve because we are dealing with very old things that they take time and labor and a lot of work. So yeah, it is a cost. It always gets balanced against other things. And when you're looking at the military, it's like, okay, saving lives, protecting,
That's a
things
good-
from cyber threats, protecting things from physical threats. I mean, it's a really hard problem. I want to give honor to that. But it always is a balance. And, definitely when there's a crisis, that's when things get really, really funded. When you shut down the major communications
Right.
link on your weapons system, that's a really good time to invest in your cybersecurity. So it comes down to those signals. But in corporate, I think you have a lot of diversity. Was it Sony that said, hey, I'm only going to get fined $1 million, so why would
Right.
why would I spend more than that on my cybersecurity? Like, you have companies that look at it that way. I think Sony has matured since then, after getting dragged through the mud appropriately on that particular area. And then you have companies that kind of look at it a little more maturely, like, this is my reputation, and if I can't protect my enterprise, then why should my customers trust me to protect their enterprise? And there is a level of investment that is required there, and you have to protect your
Right.
people. Like, it's a responsibility. But if you invest too much, then you're taking away from other problems that you can be solving. So, it really comes down to that return. And do I understand my threat surface?
Right.
And have I appropriately defended my people and my infrastructure?
Always down to the people then, the human
That
life
too.
comes first.
Absolutely.
Would love to get a brief introduction and
Sure.
and please.
My name's Josh Boutwell. I'm with Mimir Security. We are a startup that is about 4 months old. We actually just won an award from AFWorks, an Open Topic
Congrats.
Award for a sitter. And I am currently jumping through their cybersecurity validation and verification. I was just wondering if you could suggest any resources or other things that might assist a company of 2 people deal with the Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is you've picked the right path to start. Because, I mean, the SBIR and SITR program is pretty incredible. It is a relatively low bar to apply and get that first grant. You can fall on your face with the grant, or you can succeed wonderfully. It gives you room. The only thing I would tell you is, use this time to find that first customer, work those relationships, prove yourselves. That's how you get the phase 2. A lot of companies fail after that.
Do you happen to know anyone
it-
in BESS you can recommend?
So it really comes down to, like any other sales situation, leather on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta hustle and find the right market fit, and you have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
But that grant gives you that foot in the door to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, good luck.
I have just 3, if you don't mind, while there's no one behind me. I'll take all 3 if that's okay.
That's fine.
First of all, go Army. Anybody
Love
else?
it.
Nobody? Thank you so
Yeah.
much. There we go. Okay.
All right.
So let's see, the first one. See, I've already forgotten. Forgive me. So let's see here. Okay. So I've seen a lot about collaboration with the government and private industry. I know there are a lot of ways for me to take in threat indicators and threat intelligence from the government, but I don't know of many ways to give it back. I've built my SOCs on government standards using things like Diamond Model and things like that. How can I give you back this tasty, juicy threat intel that I have from my own intrusion analysis?
You know what, you might remember
Yeah.
some of these resources too. I know that the Department of the Air Force has a site for voluntary threat reporting,
You can.
and
Yeah,
and the NSA as well.
Yeah, and let's we're happy to stay after for any resource questions as well. So like Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, right? And then you work with organizations like Microsoft as well that have a partnership. You can plug it in through our Intel feed. So there's a plethora of resources. We could sync offline on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I've worked with the ISACs a lot, but again, it's all information flowing to me,
Right.
not to you all. Okay, real
Thank
quick.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, I promise I'll be fast.
Oh, no,
You
you're
mentioned
fine.
experience, but then you talked about, I think, testing, and those are 2 different things. And so, are there any opportunities for cyber analysts, government employees, whatever, to go and intern liaison with civilian organizations or private industry that maybe are seeing more attacks and attack types than you're seeing?
Yeah, there are several internship programs. There's SkillBridge, which is kind of veterans coming out. What is the internship program called?
The NSA.
It's like education with industry.
Yeah, we have education with industry, and we're talking just general internship programs for national security, right?
Yeah, it's a similar problem I think I see with college students. They have the knowledge, but not the experience and the wisdom
Right.
that comes with that.
Right, and are we talking about veterans specifically? I didn't.
No, not necessarily,
Anyone, right?
no.
So like the NSA has a couple, and they're publicly located. They've really leaned into training, and I know we didn't talk about skilling for individuals, but one of the concepts that, Harry Coker was speaking about it this morning, was they're really looking for different mindsets to get into cyber. They aren't necessarily looking for people with a cyber background, with IT backgrounds. They're looking for historians. They're looking for political science majors. They're looking for mathematicians.
Finance.
They're looking for finance
Public
people.
affairs.
Right?
Yeah, communication.
And you'd be surprised, all of them now, if you go to their learning sites, they've waived a lot of these categories. If you apply, like they have programs for those individuals to now start becoming fellows and of that nature.
Yeah, we
So-
got a chance to work with like a lot of ERs, for example, and
Yeah.
ambulance services for experience when I was on active duty. So anyways, last one real quick, I promise. Did you mention something about a labor shortage still?
There's still a cybersecurity shortage of personnel. One of the conversations that we can have after, and that I empower everyone to look at, is there's so many cybersecurity folks out there. It's the requirements that bar them from getting
That's my
into
question.
the industry.
That's my
right?
question.
So organizations like SAIC and even Microsoft have taken some of those requirements down now to allow folks to get into cyber that may not have those prerequisites, right? I was a 21-year operator, and I didn't start in cyber until 2016, right?
Yeah.
So that tells you, that diversity in moving into cyber for organizations like mine and even Lauren's and many of yours, right? You have to bring people in differently, and we're starting to see that in industry.
The government is starting to get rid of degree requirements and things like that too. The really smart, like master sergeant,
Yeah.
We've had a couple folks come out of the enlisted force and then go become just absolute savants up at NSA and other
Interesting.
places.
Yeah.
So specifically, do you think the reclassification of marijuana will help with that?
The reclassification of what?
Marijuana.
Oh, not anytime soon in the military, I don't think.
You're missing out on a lot of talented people. That's a shame.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Huh.
I know we're
Yeah.
running up on.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks though.
I know we're running up on the last minute, and I'd like to give you the last words. Number one, thank you all for staying, and I know that you have many sessions to go to, so we really do appreciate your time. If you have any last parting thoughts for everyone here, we'd love to give that back to you.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for coming and being just a great engaged audience. Appreciated the questions, and I hope that we gave you maybe a couple of tidbits of either education or validation. And thank you for doing what you're doing. This is a really important field to be in at a really important time. So whatever your contribution is, thanks and keep at it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.